Good morning. Ayin Beis, volume 3, on page 1286. Aleph Reish Pei Vav. Okay. So just to sum up what we've been learning. So essentially, the discussion here is the role that mitzvos, Torah and mitzvos play, and the role that Neshomos play, and how they interact, and both are necessary in transforming this world and drawing down the highest levels of the divine, even the Chodosh, highest levels of divine energy, all the way up to the Helam Atzmi. So far we've learned about Torah mitzvahs that they're connected to this Hu Ushmai, Hayahu Ushmai Bilvad, actually Nivra El Hayahu and Shmai, that they relate to Shmai, to the name Havaya. Yud Kei Vav Kei is the letters Mem Tzadik Vav Hei. The Mem Tzadik exchanges the Yud Kei. And generally speaking, this is the revelations, the highest levels of revelation, but it's still revelation. Oiris in Kalim. Like we learned at length, how Torah mitzvahs, and we'll break down the difference in Torah mitzvahs in a moment, is drawing down like the tikkun hakelim, as he called it, the repair and the building of the very containers of existence. Like we read on page 1286, the previous paragraph. The difference in Torah and mitzvahs is like the difference in Yud Kei and Vav Kei. Even though mitzvahs also have the Yud Kei in them, but mitzvahs is the oisius, the letters and the containers of Yud Kei Vav Kei, and Torah is the Torah the energy of Yud Kei Vav Kei. And the energy he called is the Amshachas Ba'atzmai, not just the containers drawing down the energy, but the energy itself being generated. Mitzvahs is more mamata l'mayla from the bottom up, and the Torah is mamayla lamata from the top down. But either way, they're still connecting Oiris and Kalim. There's still the energies that relate somewhat to existence. So even the highest levels that we learned, the Oir, as it's legalis la'atzmei, even as the divine is revealing an energy only to himself. The other does not access it, but the very Gilui, he said, already puts it in the realm of existence. That ultimately it connects in some way, has a shaykhis, like he said on page, I'm reading on page 1285. He said, the Cholshu B'chinas Gilui Era, Gam Shai Gilui Rak La'atzmei, Yove Lidei Gilui L'Zulosei Gamkein. The Ma'ach, V'hainu the Ma'ach Shu B'chinas Gilui Betzim Yesh Lei Shaykhis Ala Gilui L'Zulos. So already has, once it's in the world of revelation, the whole purpose of revelation is God doesn't need revelation, as we learned. It's only for the purpose of existence. So even the revelation to self is already in that realm. Whereas there's a level that he called there you can't even call it, it's not even in the domain or in the realm of revelation. And we're now going to learn how Neshomos are connected to that level. So Torah Mitzvos has been established, what it accomplishes. But remember the question that he began with on page 1282 was, on page 1281, he said, that you need that Amshachas HaMitzvahs comes after the preparation of the Aved of Ava Rabba B'chol Me'idecha Mesiras Nefesh. Why do you need that? If mitzvahs and Torah mitzvahs reach the core essences, the Ratzon Atzmi of the Eibishter, why do you need the Aved B'chol Me'idecha Mesiras Nefesh? And his initial answer was because in order to reveal the innermost dimensions of the higher levels, you need the neshama to access through its Mesiras Nefesh, the Yechida, its core essence, to reveal that core essence. Mitzvos on its own, he said on page 1282, mitzvos on its own doesn't have that. Mitzvos bad ein nimsha b'chinisas. Raka shall be seder ishtalshus. Keli mamshech ha'er. And then we continued on page 1282 to say, and furthermore, Neshomos are higher than mitzvahs, which is what we're in the middle of discussing now. So both elements are part of that answer, and the answer will be complete after we finish the next section, and he's going to come back and tie it all together and explain why you need to have mitzvahs and Neshomos that are Mesiras Nefesh and B'chol Meidecha, all the different levels that we've been discussing. So earlier we learned the power of mitzvahs is the kelim are rooted higher than the earth. That's what mitzvahs do. But now we're learning even higher levels, even higher than earth itself, because ultimately we don't just want earth to be drawn down into the keli, like Havaya into Elikim, but we want ein oid, that the keli itself should be radiating and exuding divine energy, which is the transformation of the keli. So that's somewhat a short summary of what we've learned. And I'm going to continue now at the beginning of the new paragraph, page 1286, middle of the page. And these pages can be found, the text at ayinbeis.com. Maybe someone can also, if I may make a request, some people asked me that when we post the audio or the video of each class, whether it can also be posted the page of the PDF of that same text, so someone can look at the WhatsApp, they can just listen and follow. So if someone doesn't mind, and just extract that page, that would be helpful. After we post the audio, just to put that page there. If anybody's interested in volunteering to do that.
I'm happy to do that, Rabbi. This is Yitzchak.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Should be pretty simple.
So each day, even if we're on the same page, on the next day, put the same page? No?
That's a good question. I think if we're on the same page, you could leave it. I mean, it's be obvious. I think you don't have to post it again. I think only as I go to the next page.
Okay.
No need to repost. No.
Okay.
Maybe it's not a bad idea to put it every day. It makes it easier.
Okay, fine. Either way, it's just a post. It's not, you could just copy it. Yeah. Especially if there were different posts in between. Either way is fine. Whatever.
Okay, I'll post it I'll post it every day, even if we're on the same page.
No pun intended. Right. Okay.
Let's go.
So let's learn inside now. New paragraph, page 1286. It says, "V'kol zeh." So everything we just learned was about Torah, like he said in the previous line. Torah is pnimiyus se'er shalamayla ma'kelim, and mitzvahs, which is chitzeni se'er, that's within the kelim. That was the words he used. This was just look at the actual language. Okay. Which you could even call etzem ha'er, but it's still in the gather of Gilui. He says, Kol zeh mashakeli mamshecher. All this is still in the realm where the keli is drawing air. So you're dealing with, just to use the example that I've used in the past and I'll use again here. When a person is a healthy human being and you don't need extra energy due to, God forbid, an illness or extra strength, so that a healthy person is eres b'kelim. The blood is rushing through your veins and your arteries. Thank God. You're breathing smoothly. All the other liquids and all the other and so on in the person's human body is all functioning in a smooth and seamless way. But that's all called eres b'kelim. That's like mamala kalam. That's the divine energy within existence, and everything is aligned. In a way, what we learned in volume 1, that the Aves, the patriarchs and matriarchs, what they did was, their Aveda was to realign existence, like we learned in Basilagani, after the transgressions that defiled and concealed the Shekhinah all the way back to the seventh heaven, that Avram and then the following 7 generations brought it back down. So it's realigning existence the way it was meant to be by the beginning of creation. But an Chadash, which is by Matan Torah, and especially La'asad Lave, the work we do now is to do much more than that, is to draw down higher levels of the divine that weren't even there in the beginning. In other words, more than just a healthy body, to elicit much deeper and higher levels. That we're going to learn now is what we need Neshomos for, and the Ava B'chol Meidecha Mesiras Nefesh. So and there's no problem with that. Torah Mitzvos draws down Oyer through the Aveda of Tikkun HaKelim, like he said in the previous paragraph. He called it Vasisam Oyso, Mailan Elechem Kilo Asuni, Tikkun HaKeli, that you repair, you improve, you refine the containers, that they should be seamless channels to draw the energy within it. Just like, again, a human body, if a person, God forbid, let's say is a part of the body, some limb or organ has been injured or has been hurt or compromised. So through exercise and hygiene and good diet and all the good things, you clean it up, and now the keli is primed and able to draw the energy to the best of its ability. Tikkun HaKelim. U'kamoishin is bar le'il be'inyan ratzei v'shuv. Interesting. He adds something now. U'kamoishin is bar le'il. I have to remember where that is. But we definitely spoke about ratzei and shuv. Ratzei and shuv. What is the process of ratzei and shuv? Ratzei and shuv is how every oyer and keli works. The oyer retains its transcendent quality, but it needs to be contained in the kelim. The energy just expires. Oyer just goes up and doesn't come down. It doesn't fulfill the purpose. Like we learned earlier, if you just have a love for the divine and your whole soul expires and is consumed by that, it's not the kavan. The kavan is to bring it down. That's what Torah mitzvahs do. That's where Torah mitzvahs is necessary and not just Ava B'chol Meidecha. Because Ava B'chol Meidecha can lead a person all the way up to the highest levels, Ratzeh without a shuv. Torah mitzvahs grounds it that you're doing a mitzvah. You're grounding it with an actual action, or whatever the mitzvah may be, and learning Torah, bringing down a lakus into this existence. So all this is part of Tikkun HaKelim, Oyer in Kelim, Oyeris in Kelim. But now comes, if you remember, we talked about something deeper. The transformation of the Keli, that the Keli itself reveals its source. Avamasha Keli nepach la'oyer. Not just a carrier of energy, a channeler of energy, but that the keli itself is nepach la'er, meaning nepach to the er that relates to the keli, its root and its source. And that is, you need more than Torah mitzvahs. Who? Al yedei the Neshomos shem gam ken bechinas keli. And this is achieved through Neshomos, the souls that are also the level of Kalim we learned earlier. The Neshomos are also Kalim. But they're Kalim that, as they are in their root, higher than connected to Ur. So if you recall, when he first spoke about Neshomos at the top of page 1282, he said exactly that. Look at the bottom of page 1281. Remember, we learned that a neshama, to be a neshama, is yotzu v'nifredu from the kelim, because neshamas have identity. They're not just pure elikus as it is in the etzem and helam ha'atzmi. They do travel through shtalshlus and come into this world. That's what leads, as he says there, to the transformation. So the shadish or so now we're adding more, not just that the keli draws energy, that the keli itself is an expression of divine power. Now it could be confusing because you think when you read it, it sounds like, okay, the keli till now was drawing down energy. Now it's becoming energy. So first of all, that's correct. That's deeper than just the keli. Like if you say that your eyes are drawing the vision into your eye. You see very clearly, 20/20 vision. But you don't say that the very eye has become vision. You say it's a keli, it's a perfect seamless container. But here he means more than just that it becomes the energy of the oir in the keli. It means, like we learned earlier, it means the oir of the etzema oir, hela ma'atzmi, like we're going to learn, even deeper and higher than the oir within the keli. But he does say the word nepach la'oir, because that's the expression used earlier. So it's more than just the keli drawing oir, it's also the keli becoming a manifestation of divine and in a revealed way, as it will be la'asad love in the future. But let's read it inside. So he says like this: V'sheidish and Neshomos hein lamayla ma mitzvos, and the root of the soul of souls is higher than mitzvos. V'hainu, and here he states clearly, v'hainu shehein b'bchinas hu shelamayla b'bchinas shmoi. They're the level of hu shmoi bilvad. Remember hu lashon nister in the third person because it's fundamentally concealed. It can't even be revealed. They are rooted in the hu that's higher than shmoi havaya, which is the root of mitzvahs. Or as he said, atu hu havaya levadecha. There's hu and havaya, hu and shmoi. The beginnes madrega zu eine begeder mocker or begeder shaykhis ela ilmes v'shtalshus klal. As we learned, the level of hu is not even in the realm of being a source. Not only is it not a source, not even in the realm, the domain of being a source, or in the realm of having any relationship with the worlds and the cosmic order. Now it's interesting. He's saying because the Gilui La'atzmei, the highest levels of where mitzvahs and Torah are rooted, it's true, it's a revelation to himself, but it's begeder Gilui. It's just not a Gilui yet to another. But to say it's not in the world of revelation, it is. It just hasn't reached the other yet. Here, you're talking about something that is fundamentally not even a state of revelation. Like we spoke about, and I elaborated. When a teacher has already begun to even reveal an idea to himself, it's already entered the domain, the realm of revelation. Now it's going to be a matter of time of how he's going to teach it to the student. And even if the student doesn't access it right now, but it's there. It's in the stratosphere of revelation. But that which remains beyond the consciousness of the teacher himself, like we spoke about things that we can't even express, not only to others, but to yourself even. Like he said, those essential levels, but it's in the gather of Mitzias Nimtza, not built in Mitzias Nimtza, as I explained. That is not the gather Gilui and not the gather Shaykhis Ela Ilmas V'Shtalshus Klal. That's the level of hu. And that's where souls are rooted. So now, when the Neshomos are doing the Havaya, this is what they do. They are drawing from that place. Okay, so let me just stop for a moment. So now he's going to say something furthermore. So far we've said now that we've reached a place where the Keli is rooted in his core essence, which is beyond revelation. In other words, God is revealing to us, paradoxically, a state that is completely unrevealable. And that's a Keli. Remember, we learned that about a Keli. The true Keli is not just that it's a channel for light. It's also, it manifests God's power to conceal himself. It manifests God's power to create something that's not expressing him. He said this back when he spoke about the root of the Rishimu is higher than the root of Oir. A Neshama, his role is to reveal something that's unrevealable. Let me go back to the example of a father and a child, and I'll use the Tanya here. In Ayin Beis in Tanya, he says that the Neshama comes from Vayipach Ba'apov, B'techi Yusei, U'meprimi Yusei. A place that comes from the essence of the divine, like a child that comes from Etzem Moyach Ha'av. Now, hypothetically, a child and a father, they're connected on an Etzem level, but it could be on a Giluyim level. They're not connected. For example, you can have a teacher that does more for you in learning and revealing your faculties and actualizing than your father does. You could have a father that also teaches. I'll talk about that in a moment. But in the world of Giluyim, you can have a teacher that had much more impact on you than your father did. or your parent did. But the etzem, nothing can replace. So the etzem connection between the neshama and God is like ola b'machshavte, like he says. Chachmosei machshavte yizbarach. Srol ola b'machshava, in chapter 2. And chuva chachmosei echad. So this is all the essence of the divine, looks like the essence of the Father that is transferred genetically to the child. But remember, we need Torah mitzvos. In chapter 4 and 5, he comes and says that the levushim of Torah mitzvos is higher, even though they're only garments, but they reach higher than the levushim of nefesh, ruach, and neshama that he spoke about in Ayin Beis. What means higher? Because what they do is reveal the connection. You could have the father and son, they're fundamentally connected, but it's completely concealed. Yeah, maybe when the moment of Mesiras Nefesh or something, you'll see the connection. But generally, it can be completely concealed. When the child does Torah mitzvahs, which is God's revealed Chochmah and Ratzon, this is what God says, I want you to do. When the child is now acting and behaving, thought, speech, and action, and living up to what his father wants. So then you just don't, then you have, in addition to the etzem, you also have the embrace, that you're embracing your father. And not just two separate entities, but you embrace it because Torah Mitzvos brings the giluyim of Eiris and Kalim. And especially Torah in chapter 5, he says it's even more than an embrace, a makif. It's Seiroscha b'seich me'ai, the Torah goes b'kirba, in her, into the neshama, internalized, that when you learn the yichud nifla, the awesome union that your mind melds and bonds with God's mind and with God's will. So that's the role of Torah mitzvahs. But if you only had Torah mitzvahs and you didn't have the neshama, you wouldn't have the etzem. And the etzem is higher than gilui. So in a way, when you're reading this and you bring them together with Tanya, it really explains Tanya in a powerful way. So neshamas come from the level of who? That's more of an etzem. And the Torah mitzvahs comes from the level of shemoi. So now, sheresh and neshamas l'mayla mitzvahs shem b'chinas hainu shem who shalamayla b'chinas shemoi. And this is not even Gedra of Shaykhis, because this is God the Father wants to have his child. The neshama and God have a relationship that's outside of Ishtalshalos. Torah mitzvahs is also the Ratzon Atzmi of the Eibishter. But it's the Ratzon Atzmi that God wants the Torah mitzvahs, Leiba Shamayim, not to be in heaven, but to come to this world. And the neshama, through performing Torah mitzvahs, should reveal godliness in this world. So it's also rooted in God's etzem ratzon. It's not just the chitzeni sa'ir that God uses to create the art or to create existence. It's God's will and desire, but it's the will of desire of bringing elokus begoli. The neshama is the very child of God. And a child and a father are connected fundamentally on the level of who, even if there's nothing revealed. Even if there's no ishtalshlus, and there's no elemus, and there's no giluyim, and nothing, that connection is fundamentally there. Now, of course, you could ask the question. 1 minute, I'm middle. Now, you could ask the question, is Torah mitzvahs doesn't have a connection with God outside of existence? Doesn't it say that Torah is also kodma la'olam? So I'll address that after we finish this topic. But relatively speaking, he's made it clear. On page 1282, he said that from Tshuva you see this, that the Ratzon and Tayin b'neshamas on their own is higher than the Tainug Atzmi, Ratzon Atzmi of Torah mitzvahs. So we have to still understand what mitzvahs are independent of existence, but at the end of the day, as Torah mitzvahs relates more to existence than does neshamas. And obviously you need both, because we want to have down in this world, we want to have the gili of shmoi and hu, not just hu and not just shmoi. You want both. That's why you need Torah mitzvahs and neshamas. So right now he's going to be talking about neshamas, and now the next step he's going to talk about is how the neshamas, not only do they reach a higher level, but they actually also transmit that higher energy into Havaya, into Torah mitzvahs. But I'll stop here before the value dezen if anybody wants to ask anything.
Yeah, when you talk about a level of who of a neshoma, is that same as saying chelik al kal mamish?
I don't know. He doesn't say that here. I don't have enough information to answer that question. It could be that's the level. It could be chelik halakha goes even higher. Because at the end of the day, even in chapter 2, when he says chelik halakha mamish, then he says that it's chokhmah yizbar. Chokhmah is not elakha mamish. Chokhmah is already how elakha comes into a level of chokhmah, into some manifest level. In other words, the father is the father, the etzem moyach ha'av. So it's the moyach ha'av is the chokhmah, the mind of the father that connects to the neshama. So you see itself that neshama has different levels of its connection. But basically, hu v'chachma se'echad, so you'd say that he's one with his chokhmah. I can't say definitively exactly what level is who. I'm just comparing the two in context of comparing neshama and mitzvos and Torah mitzvos. It all depends how you understand chelik elikam and mal mamish, to be honest. Is it chelik, like it says chelik havaya imay, chelik havaya amay. So it says that later in Torah, and it talks there about Havaya, Chelik Havaya. So it's Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Neshama also connects to Yud Kei Vav Kei, but here he's definitely talking a higher level than Shemo.
Yeah, higher, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. When we were talking about like a teacher, using the analogy of a teacher, Gila Latzmo and Gila Lazulas in Shemo, the two levels in Shemo, and then you said that who is like the subconscious. So my question to you is, true, it's subconscious, he might not be aware of it, but subconscious is accessible through hypnotism or through psychotherapy.
So 1 second, let me correct.
No?
I specifically stated that it's not the subconscious. I said that there's two levels of subconscious. There's a subconscious that relates to the conscious, and then there's a hela ma'atzmi that's completely supraconscious, that's completely beyond consciousness altogether, and can never be accessed. That's what I said, to be exact.
So the level of who is
two levels of chachmas tema. So we're talking about the hela ma'atzmi that's completely beyond any access.
Okay, so does that mean that there's two levels in who? One is accessible and one is not?
No, one is who and one is shmoi. Remember, Torah mitzvahs accesses keser, chachmas tema, but the one that relates to consciousness. As a matter of fact, if you look on top of page 1285, he says it explicitly. Okay.
Okay.
Says it clearly. Yeah, that's all in Keser, Chochmas Tamar that relates. What I'm talking about is something that is completely beyond, what he's talking about here, rather, is completely beyond. You can't call it subconscious. You talk about something that's completely never revealed and not capable of being revealed.
Although I thought, are we going to say that with Mesiras Nefesh for certain unique times?
We'll learn inside. Let's see what he says.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
And remember, don't talk about it mechanically. You're not going to reveal it like regular revelation. Even if it's expressed, it's not because it's revealed. It's expressed because there are ways to express things that are not through revelation too. Remember, I gave a whole discussion about seeing God's face without seeing it. You don't end up seeing God's face. It's through different ways that you experience it. It's like it says, "Les machshavet tfisa beklal." No thought can grasp him. But iyu tof is b'ru'usa deliba. But he's grasped through ru'usa deliba. Like Amunah, for example, can grasp higher levels than thought can. So that doesn't mean revelation. It's not going to end up being that you have your cake and eat it too. Remember, there's always going to be dimensions that are completely beyond us. The whole point I made was that we're comfortable with that. We're not going to own and control this. It's when you let go of control and the need to own and the need to even see is when you start experiencing it. It's ultimate bittul. So there are levels that we do experience directly, and there'll be levels that we only experience, but we don't experience it through on our terms. It's through our complete surrender to something that's beyond us. I mean, I explained at length about things that remain fundamentally concealed in the intimate level that never reach into revelation. That's when you really start experiencing God on God's terms. If you want God on God's terms, you're going to have to accept that it's not going to be on your terms. The only thing is you could say is you won't be annihilated by it. You won't be burned up and destroyed because you built your structure. But ultimately, it's going to be an experience of reverence, not an experience of control.
Rabbi Jacobson, I have a question. In the morning prayers, we read Atahu Yudke Vavke Ha'elokim Bashamayim Imal Val Haaretz Mitachat. Is the Ata now seems to be even higher than who? Is that a fair statement?
Well, he said it explicitly on the bottom of page. If you go to the bottom of page 1282, he used the pasuk Atu hu Havaya levadecha, and he said clearly Ata b'chinas atzmus, that where it's not shayach helam and gilui. Who is Erein Sof shayach by helam v'gilui, but it's a helam be'etzem, and then there's Havaya is the name of Shemo, which is gilui. So that's what he said at the bottom of page 1282. Can you apply it to the same statement we make in davening? Perhaps. I mean, since it does say Atahu Havaya, it's possible. I mean, here he uses a different verse, but based on the statement that Atahu Havaya, 3 levels, you could say the same, similar. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So now he goes on and says, the Ayidei and through Neshomos, Nitzesif Eir B'Shem Havaya. Energy is increased and added in the name Havaya. Ukapirish Beis, like the second interpretation, something we learned earlier, I believe in volume 2. I don't think it was in volume 3, but maybe volume 2. So we learned in the second interpretation where it says, "B'mashakosav v'shamru derech Havaya." So shamru derech Havaya, this first and simple interpretation is that you shall protect and you shall follow the path of God, basically following Torah mitzvos. But there's another meaning. V'shamru derech Havaya is that not that you fulfill the path of God or follow the path of God, v'shamru that you protect, that you be mamshich. That you're adding something to derech Havaya, to the path of God, the path of Havaya. That's the second interpretation, where Neshomos adds something to Havaya, Havaya being Torah and Mitzvos, and Neshomos add to it. I believe, I want to just go back for a moment, where he spoke about, on page 1251, was discussion of tshuva. Did he mention it there? He may have mentioned it there. I just want to see something. He definitely mentioned in volume 2, but I don't remember if in volume 3. I'm just looking quickly if he mentioned B'Shamru Derech Havaya, that the Neshomos are mamshich in Torah. Okay. So now you're having now a new energy, an energy being increased in Havaya. Gam b'shem Havaya sheba atzmus. Also, Shem Havaya, what he means by atzmus here means lifnei atzimtzum. He used that expression before by Torah and Mitzvos. That's Shem Havaya, but we're talking about Shem Havaya in the highest levels, but it's still the level of Gilui la'atzmei at least. Yudke Vovke, Yudke. So you're mamshich b'shem Havaya from the level of who is nimshach in Shmoi, basically. Neshomos are drawing energy into Havaya. Oh, yeah. Okay, now comes a parenthesis, which I don't see the end of this parenthesis, at least not in my vision here. I don't see the end of this parenthesis. So I think the end of this parenthesis goes I would speculate it goes for 3 lines. Till the end of the word, V'amshach mebchinas Shem Havaya, I think. Anyway, let's read the parentheses, and I think it ends, 3 lines, 2 lines. So he says like this in the parentheses, V'al pizei shleimer, and according to this, that the Neshomos draw energy into Havaya, he's going to explain something we learned earlier on page 1276. So there he spoke about how mitzvah mem tzadik vav hey, that in today the yud k is concealed in the garment of mem tzadik in the exchange of mem tzadik, and the primary gilui is vav k. But then he said la'asud lave, we revealed the yud k itself, and you won't need a garment any longer. And then he brought a Maimer Chazal that said, Asidim tzadikim sheyikru b'shmei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then in the future, tzadikim will be called by the name of God. And Rashi says, sheyir shmam Havaya. Their name will be Havaya. She explained, how is that possible? She explained the Hainu, I'm reading on page 1276 because it'll help us understand what we're going to read down. The Hainu, the tzadikim amekayim Torah mitzvos. It's around 2/3 down the page, or 3/4 down the page, actually. That tzadikim that are performing and fulfilling Torah mitzvos, yishmam Havaya, their name will be Havaya, mepnei sheyizgala b'chinas Havaya shebamitzvos sheyeh b'gili mamash. Because it will be revealed the Havaya within the mitzvah. Mitzvah itself is Yud K Vav K, but the Yud K will be revealed, so you'll see the Shem Havaya within them. The Gam Yizgali says, B'chinas Helam Ha'er, B'chinas Helam Ha'atzmi. That it will all be revealed. That's what he says there. So now he's going back and saying, I'll pee what we just learned, that the Neshomos draws energy into Havaya. He says you can understand that in the future tzaddikim will be called by the name of Havaya, by God. The tzaddikim aveda be'etzem neshmosam. That tzaddikim through their work in their core neshama, with a great intense love, with all their might, the highest level of love, all-consuming love. So Yikru can mean also not only they'll be called it, that they will be drawing down. Kriya comes from the word Kriya v'amshocha, calling and drawing down. When you call someone, you draw them, you call their name. So Kriya v'amshocha b'chinas Shem Havaya. There'll be a call and hamshacha, transmission into the Shem Havaya, as we just said. So not only will they be called Havaya, they will also draw energy into Havaya, because they're higher than Havaya, higher than Shemo. This is who being drawn into Shemo. Now, I think the parenthesis ends here, even though it's possible it goes on further, because the next lines all fit to what was said before the parentheses. So let's continue to read. I'm assuming the parentheses ends here. Shemamshichim. So what does this mean? They draw down mebchinas helam ha'oyer. The Neshomos are drawing down from the concealed energy, helam ha'oyer ha'atzmi, the fundamentally concealed state, mebchinas gili ha'oyer. It's drawing down from there into a state of gili ha'oyer. But it's not the level of Gilead. It's a level that's fundamentally beyond. But that's being drawn down into Gilead. Shazeu hamshachas er chadash. This is now a new energy. Not Eris and Kalim. The Kalim are drawing energy that's there already. And even if it's an energy that wasn't there, like he said, Pnimius ha'er from Torah, it's still in the realm of Gili. We said even the highest levels of Er is the realm of Gili. But here we're talking about something like he said before. Why did he call it a Er Chadash? He made it very clear. I'm reading on page it's a Er Chadash because it's completely not connected to Gili. So if you can draw from that, it's a completely new type of revelation, new type of experience. That's higher, even from being a source of Ishtalshalus. Ishtalshalus is structure of existence. The source of Ishtalshalus is where God relates to existence. The source of the source is Gilui La'atzmei, Shmoi, like Yudke, but it's revealed to himself. This level of who is completely beyond being a source, even a source of a source. So that's why if something is drawn from there, it's going to be completely unprecedented, completely new, because it's not an energy that was ever revealed. And in the other extreme, we also learn Va'gilui nimshach ad lamata mata. And because it's something that's not subject to the hierarchy of the cosmic order, it also transcends all the levels and is drawn all the way down lamata mata to the lowest levels. Ki ba'ed is Seder Ishtalshalus, because the energy of Seder Ishtalshalus, u'b'mokar ha'er, and even the energy in the source of energy. And even the energy that's at least a source of a source, which means it's in the realm of revelation. There you can say there's an order and a hierarchy, a process, a step-by-step process. Therefore, and that's why the energy can't go everywhere, because it's defined by structure. Even the highest levels is defined by a level of Gili. But this level that is fundamentally defies, concealed, and defies, it's not even, it can't even be called a source of a source. It's completely in God's domain. When it is drawn and revealed, its revelation is undiscriminating, and it's everywhere, because it's not based on the structure of existence. It's not an energy that's allocated or tailored or even defined by in the highest levels to anything that's in existence. It just flows freely everywhere to the lowest levels.
Did you skip about Bechinas Hahelam Or?
No, I just read it.
Okay,
I just read it. But this fundamentally concealed, which is higher than a mocker of even a source of a soul, when it does transmit, since it's not subject to this structure, it's revealed b'chol mocker. And as explained earlier, the kol sha'er elyon yeser, that the higher the energy is, it's drawn and revealed lower. The lower it's revealed. So even when we're talking about Gili Ayr, he said the higher the energy, the further down it goes, because it's because it's completely infinitely separate. It's completely disproportionate. So the higher the energy is rooted, the farther it goes down. The kolshkein, and for sure this is true in a level that's higher than air. So that's true even when you have a very powerful light. The more powerful it is, So it defies essentially the distinctions of space. So let's say you have a very powerful flame. The more powerful the flame, the farther you can see it. And that's due to its power. So how much more so when you're talking about Hela Ma'ir, a level that's completely beyond revelation, that when it is Nimshach, as he says, and when it's for sure, the Gili Hela Ma'ir for sure reaches in an indiscriminate way all the levels without any distinction. And now he's going to conclude the answer to the question on page 1282. On page 1281 of why you need not just mitzvahs, but you need the B'chol Moedecha and the Mesiras Nefesh of Neshomos. So let me read that, and then we'll stop for any questions. So he says like this. V'zehu. You know what? I'll stop right now if anybody wants to ask something on what we just read.
He's saying that this is a different thing. It's a Hamshach or Chodosh. We asked that question once before, but it was not clear. That means that before the Gilui, this kind of Gilui, is it still, I know it's not a mocker, but this the who is in between the Atzmos and the Shmoi. It has to be there, the who, right? Is this like a part of the system that it must be in order the Shmoi should be?
If I recall, you've asked this question to me 4 times already. And I'll answer
I asked you one time, but you said that this is something that we don't know.
I'll answer again. I explained that the level of who is not Ata, that's clear. It's not Atzmus, because Atzmus is beyond Helam and Gili altogether. Even the word Helam Atzmi is already a level. It's called Helam Atzmi. It's fundamentally concealed, beyond revelation. But it's called Helam Atzmi. Atzmus, he said clearly, I just read it before. He says, Ein Shayach Be'izbarach Inyan Helam V'Gili altogether. There's no Helam, there's no Gili, it's B'chlal. I explained it, that Mitzias built to Mitzias Nimtza doesn't go into this conversation altogether. Because Mitzias built in Mitzias Nimtza is beyond any form of concealment or revelation. It's completely a different reality. So, but the Eibishter wanted to create a Mitzias Nimtza, an existence like ours. Our existence is not an undefined existence. It's a very defined existence. There are things that are revealed. There are things that are concealed. There is a hierarchy. There's a structure. Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu, we don't know, there is no reason. It's beyond reason. Desire, dire betachtenim. Tachtenim has a meaning. It means the lowest of levels, which means it's a level. And it's the lowest of levels of a long hierarchy called the cosmic order, Seder Shtalshlus, that goes level by level, as the Alter Rebbe explains in chapter 36 in Tanya. Why is it called Tachtenim? Not in space, but in revelation. Tachtenim meaning Begili Eris Baruch. That is the most concealed of the divine energy. And we come in this world, an agnostic universe, that it's easy to deny because God's existence, because God is concealed, but we have free will, and it's a real world of concealment. There's Helam V'Hester, Eilam Eloshin Helam, Helam V'Hester. The Tzimtzum did a good job. Our mission is to reveal the Elokus in this world. Firstly, to reveal the levels of the divine that relate to existence, Asar Maimoris Nivra Eilam, Yehi Ur Yidikia, to look at existence and find the divine that relates to it. That's the Ur, that's Uris and Kalim. That's called Tikkun HaKalim, Torah and Mitzvos on its own. Well, I should say on its basic level, is that what it does? You're aligning existence to the divine energy that sustains existence. But we want more than that. It wants to be a Dira Lo Yizbarach, all the way to the highest levels. So we climb this ladder, we reveal the godliness step by step. After the 7 generations that conceal the divine, Avram Avinu reversed the process to the point of Matan Torah and Shachanti B'Seichem 7 generations later, brought it back down, aligning existence to its creator. that in existence you see the artist within the art. But we learned we want to reach higher levels. We want to reach the artist as he's beyond the art and even deeper levels. So as we climb this ladder, God instilled in Seder Shtalshlus, or even higher than Seder Shtalshlus, he instilled a level in Mitzias Nimtza that has something in common with Atzmus, which is beyond Gili. It's still not Atzmus, but he put something into Mitzias Nimtza that's called Helam Atzmi. So now we have a state that is a state of being, but it's a state that completely defies any revelation. That's who. There's Ata, which, as I said, is built in Mitzias Nimtza. There's who, Mitzias Nimtza, but a Helam Atzmi, it defies revelation. As not even a mocker to mocker of Shishtalshlus. And that's where Neshomos are rooted. And then there's Shmoi, which is the beginning of the mocker to mocker of Ishtalshlus, ultimately leading to the Giluyim that will create Ishtalshlus. So when you go from the bottom up, you go from this world through Torah Mitzvos through Shmoi. But what he says now is Neshomos, and now we're going to learn about Chol Meidecha and so on, leads you also all the way to who, which is the divine, a fundamental concealed divine, but it's in the world of Mitzias Nimtza. He doesn't say these words Mitzias Nimtza. I'm using it just to explain its level, but it's definitely a level. And then and that is mamshich even in Havaya, and the Giluyim of Yudke Vovke that come through mitzvahs. Also, v'shamru derech Havaya, like you said, the tzaddikim draw down, the shamas draw down also into Torah mitzvahs, an additional end. Where's the er chadash? Dafka from who? Because once you get to a mocker of Seder Shtalshlus, you're already talking about, like he said before, at length, that it's beiskalalus. That was the words he used. This whole discussion he spoke about on page 1284 about iskalus, how lower levels in Shtalshlus are encompassed in higher levels, but in a concealed state. Midas and moichin in lamaylam and moichin, even rotzen and tainug in the mocker of rotzen and tainug, everything is encompassed. There, you can't call it a Er Chadash because it's already there earlier, except it's in the form of Hiyuli. He used the explanation of a Yuli. Actually, no, my mistake. Hiyuli he used on Etzem Er, that's higher than Gili altogether. But we're talking about levels that are at least in the realm of Gili. Now, when you talk about who, Etzem, the words, he said the following, so the who, is kamoya etzem. Kamoya etzem ain't beget the gili betzem. Kamoya ken achichas atzmin, and that's the etzem that's not begili betzem. I'm reading on top of page 1283. But the Eibishter wanted us to also have access, somewhat in the world of Mitzias Nimtza, which is our reality, to something that's beyond any form of connection to existence, because any level below that is already connected to existence. And that's what the Neshomos and B'chol Meidecha are going to add and increase right now. That's the level of who. I believe I explained this. I'm only going over it again because it's something that needs to be reviewed many times. But I don't think you're going to get it from me just saying it again and again. I think you have to go over it yourself.
No, that was very good what you said just now. It was so clear and so beautiful. So the Ayin Oid is who?
He didn't say that explicitly yet. We'll see as we go further. I don't want to say that until the Rebbe Rashab says it. I don't know the exact language that has to be used. Right now, the who is definitely connected to Mahapach, the Keli, to Oir, that the Keli itself should be Megala, the Helam Atzmi. So is
who, like you said, is a Metzias Nimtza.
That's the way I would explain it. Again, this is not specific in Ayin Beis, but it's the only way you can explain that it's not Ata, but it's also not Shmoi.
And the Veniglo is reaching higher than that?
It sounds like Venigla Kvei Havaya is still Shmoi. Who is higher than even that? That's still the Gili of Yudke Vovke in the mitzvah. That's Venigla Kvei Havaya. I think that this is talking about a level higher than Nigla Kvei Havaya.
Going to Rabbi Eliezer's question, this
just
seems like...
just 1 second. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry.
So is it going to be the Osid Lovoy, the Ato, the Giloi of the Ato?
We'll see how the Rebbe Rashab explains it. I don't want to jump and say anything until we see what he says.
Thank you.
Going to Reb Eliezer's
Maybe
question.
as soon as you say the Gili of Ata, you mean who? Because Ata is not subject to Helam and Gili. So it could be that if you have Shmoy and who, you're essentially getting a taste of Ata, even though we will never be built to Mitzvos Nimtza. But that could be that the two who and Shmoy reveal two koiches of Ata, which is one is the koich HaGili, one is the koich HaHelam Atzmi. So you could also understand it that way, but we'll see. I don't want to jump there until we actually learn it. He's going to talk about it.
The only way that who is such a high level, it's because the oil is me'ein amoyer, right? It's a Metzias Nimtzo, the who.
Well, the who is definitely identifying with the Eibishter. Who means him, the Eibishter. So it is ultimately, is the etzem ha'oyer, but not as oyer and gilui. It's etzem ha'oyer as etzem of amshach of koyach ha'helam. You know, the question of how it relates to oyer, we'll talk about. I discussed it as well, etzem ha'oyer on two different levels, but we'll see. Let's see where he says. Well, I don't want to really come to anything conclusive until we finish the subject.
But we're calling the who a Metzias Nimtzo.
I called it a Metzias Nimtza.
Okay, so this is only because of oyer me'ein amoyer. If a Metzias Nimtzo,
what other option do you have? I mean, what are you saying exactly?
No,
you could also call it not. You could also call it not oyer. You can call it a koyach hahelim of the Eibishter.
Yeah, but if
it's like yicholte shaloi lahoyer. I don't want to go there because you have to know that it's a very big subject matter that we're addressing right now.
Yeah, but then it's a not Metzias Nimtzo. If you're saying it's not,
no, yicholte shaloi lahoyer is also Metzias Nimtzo. Yicholte shaloi lahoyer, yicholte lahoyer. It's true. Yecheles ha'atzmus is beyond, but there's the expression of the ability to be mitzamtzim, to be mailim, koyach hahelam. Anyway, you're going into area that I'm telling you we haven't learned it yet. What is this koyach hahelam? Is it oyer or not oyer? Lav dafka, it's called oyer.
But the whole thing, it brings me back to in the beginning when we learned that.
On the other hand, we do
God
say
asked Neshomos Yisrael whether to create the world. I mean, it's so interesting that this is that level that where Hashem asked the Neshomos, and this is that level of Keli that we're talking about now. Maybe.
Well, as we learn, he didn't actually ask them; he envisioned asking them. So yes, it is a level where God is revealing a level that is beyond revelation. And look, I gave examples for it. You need examples. You guys are turning it again very mechanical. You have to take example. For example, when a person builds a home, so there's the inner kavanah that he has to build a home that's not expressible. We're not talking about when he's already thinking about what kind of home, or even further thinking the purpose of it. We're talking about a place that connects his etzem, that he wants a home, and that's it. And there's no conscious desire, there's no conscious will. It just reflects his core. Neshomos reflect the core essence of the divine. But it's a reflection, it's still a level. But it's the core essence of the divine beyond any state of revelation. And then there's how it manifests in revelation. So you have to get used to understanding that there are levels beyond, completely beyond what we consider consciousness, awareness, revelation. And there's no way you can force it into the parameters of revelation and awareness. Now, can that level be expressed and revealed? He's saying yes, but it's not revealed the same way that a revelation is revealed. You're revealing something that's fundamentally beyond revelation. That's what Neshomos come to do. But we're going to learn more about it, and we'll learn it inside as well.
But this is an or chadash. If it's an or, it has to be revealed. No.
What does the word revealed mean? Can you tell me what revealed means? That you see with your eyes?
It's perceptible. It's perceptible.
What does perceptible mean? Can you experience something that's not perceptible? I would say yes.
I don't know. To me, or is something that is available. It's it exists, and it's like I said, it's perceptible.
Listen, I don't think we need the word. I mean, I can find an experience that's not perceptible, and yet you experience it. Now, the question is whether you're conscious of it or not. I don't know. Maybe you're not conscious of it. Are all realities need to be conscious? You love your child even if you're not conscious of it, right? So why does it need to be necessarily felt? It's felt, it's important in the world of feelings to feel. But in the world of essence, do you actually need to feel something to know it exists? I've discussed this at length. There are realities that, who says you need to perceive or feel or sensitive for it to be? So I'm not saying that, he does say here that it's a gilui, the gilui ahelam ma'atzmi. The question has to be, what is being revealed? How is it different than the gilui of the gilui be'etzem that he's talking about? What's the difference between the gilui ahelam ma'atzmi and the gilui of the gilui atzmi, which he called Torah Mitzvos? So that's what needs to be explained. So I'm saying that it has to be a qualitatively different type of, it's not just, oh, you know what, till now we concealed it in the closet and now we're revealing it. He made clear that it's not the Helam Shalagilu. It's not a concealed state that could be revealed. He said it's not capable of being revealed. So what does it mean that something not capable of being revealed is being revealed? So my explanation would be that maybe it doesn't have to be revealed what we call revealed. Maybe it's not perceptible, as you put it, or with any one of our senses. It's an experience that you're experiencing, and you don't even need to be conscious of it. It's just the reality of what it is. It's like when we spoke about when a person is so absorbed in a book or so absorbed in something, they're not even feeling that they're absorbed. You're completely melting into the subject and object become one. You could speak about it in that way. I can explain it different ways. The point is, I'm very specifically avoiding going there because I want to be patient and see how the Rebbe Rashab explains it. And I ask you to do the same thing. He's still in the middle of the topic. We haven't finished it. Let's see how he further continues to explain it. And let's not jump the gun. I'm very patient here. And I think you should be too, if you really want to appreciate this on not just on our terms, but the way he wants to explain it. So far, he said about a level that is completely beyond Ishtalshus, beyond Gili. He calls it Ir Chodesh because it's unprecedented. That's what it means. It's unprecedented. It's an unprecedented energy. Now, what does energy mean? Is it felt? Is it sensed? Is it the same feeling just like we feel right now? Let's say we feel love or we feel awe. Are we going to feel the Helam Ha'atzmi the same way? It's a very good question. And I'm also looking to find the answer. But I'm just pointing out to you that being that I've dealt with this a lot in learning Chassidus, it takes time to get to understand exactly. I want to see how the Rebbe Rashab is going to explain this.
Shkar, thank you very much. Yeah, we're all just trying to understand Or Chadash better. I know you are too, and that's I'll try to be more patient along with Rabbi Eliezer.
Fine. Listen. The questions are all legitimate. I'm just pointing out where we're at right now, and what really, because that's the question right now. If it gets revealed, so why did he say before it can be revealed? So what are we talking about? Semantics? Something can be revealed. Now it could be revealed. What does revealed mean? So I think we'll get more clarity as we go, and I think this is some of the deepest ideas of Chassidus. And frankly, I myself want to go back earlier to page. I was just looking at the page where he talks about La'asad Laveh on page 1276. But I'm sure there's going to be more, and I'm sure there's plenty of lines that we learned earlier that we didn't fully understand at the time. So that's what we're middle of right now. And it's ultimately, yes, going to explain Ein Oid as in the context of not just how Havaya and Elikim, Havaya is revealed through Elikim, but something about the very Tzimtzum itself, the concealed state itself reveals that divine essence that is invested in the Helam. You know, when you go back to page 12, we spoke about the quality of the Shemo over the Kav. On page 1270, he made it very clear that the Keli reveals Atzmos that is not revealable because the Keli is, it's like the Yesh, when we talk about the Yesh HaNivra, comes from the Yesh HaMiti, Ein Le'ila V'Siba, that has no cause. We don't feel a cause. And that's why we are experiencing the divine essence that has no cause. What does that mean exactly? When that will be revealed, will we feel a cause or we won't feel a cause? It all connects to these ideas. So we'll get to it. There's plenty to talk about. What ultimately it means connecting to these highest levels. So right now he's laying out the basic steps, making some statements. Some of it is a little understood, some will be understood as we go along. So
So in your mashal of building a house, and through Ava, Rabba, Chomeo Decha, and the effort, not just doing Torah mitzvos, but also this level of kavana, revealing Or Chadash. With respect to your level, your mashal of building a house, is this like building an add-on, like building an extra part of the house that wasn't conceived before? I mean, is that what's happening?
no.
How would you relate it to the issue, to the contemplation of building a house, thinking about the plans, architect, and then building it out? How would you relate?
That you're experiencing not just the art and the beauty of the house and the structure of the house, and not even the benefits of the house that serve your needs, and not even God as a builder of the house, but you're experiencing the very essence of God, the creator, that's beyond the house. It's like, in other words, experiencing the artist at his core essence, even being beyond an artist, instead of experiencing just the art. And the interesting thing is that when you reach that connection, you're connecting that in turn draws energy into the house, that you appreciate the house better as well. So in that sense, the house is also infused, like he said, Havaya, the Shamru Derech Havaya, that you infuse even the divine that's revealed with a higher dimension. So it would be the difference between, like I've often given that joke or story of when Pavarotti sang "The Lord is my shepherd," Psalms 23, and everyone gave him a standing ovation. And then an old Jew remained standing, and he did his rendition, like a good Jew saying Tehillim, Chav Gimel, David Hashem Roi. And he says, and everybody started crying. So Pavarotti asked him, why did they applaud me and they cry when you said it? He says, because you may know the psalm, but I know the shepherd. And in other words, you can experience the divine through existence like scientists do, or even a Chassidus, but the divine as it relates to the beauty and grandeur of existence. But are you experiencing the divine itself? That put it all here. And the higher you go, you end up experiencing that level of the divine, not as it relates to existence, but the divine in its purest form. Who, as opposed to Shemo in this context. So
that was amazing. Thank you. That was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
What an answer.
What that experience is like, that needs to be discussed. And I'm acknowledging that. I didn't say that's easy answer, but what that experience looks like. Will it be felt like we feel everything else? Will it not be felt? We'll talk about it.
Thank you, Shkach. That was amazing. That really helped clarify where we're at, what level we're at. Thank you.
Yeah. I will say one more thing I wanted to say, which I've said a number of times. I think at the end of the day, I said this, I think, in the last class, it's going to be a combination of two sentiments or feelings or experiences. One is experiencing the love and closeness of the divine. In other words, our commonality, like Ava, combined with the paradox of feeling the absolute distance, infinite distance, and the reverence and awe that generates. So that is, keep that in mind. The combination of these two is going to be the full experience of Elokus in the fullest sense of the word. If you only have one and not the other, you don't have the dira b'tachtenim, the integrated experience. So it needs to be on our terms because we have to relate to it, but it has to also be on God's terms. And that's what the ultimate interface of Ayin Beis and Chassidus is. That the interface also on God's terms, which in turn evokes from us a sense of reverence and awe and mystique. There's nothing wrong with embracing the mystique of Elokus. It's just as powerful and even more powerful than embracing the awareness of Elokus, the things we relate to. And in a way, Helema Atzmi is more the mystique, and the Shemo is more the Gilui. And you really want both because Atzmus is beyond both. But I think it's going to come down to how we combine these two. This balance that I mentioned also in relationships. When you come to discover that your spouse is ultimately a tremendous mystery wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a conundrum, while also having a close relationship, it is a paradox. But you know what? We're in a world here that's beyond paradoxes. Even paradoxes are part of our limited understanding of things. There's a point where this isn't a paradox. It's two realities that come together and join seamlessly, and you experience them both all the time. Now, it's hard for us, especially, as I said, we're people of Giluyim. We're people of structure. So it's hard for us to relate to both those feelings at the same time. You know, you're feeling the mystery of it, or you're feeling the closeness of it. Is it revealed or is it mysterious? Now, when you reveal the mystery, it doesn't mean the mystery has become revealed. It means the mystery is you're experiencing the mystery. And that's a very critical point in this whole discussion. But as I said, I still want to withhold anything conclusive and definitive till we really hear it inside in the Rebbe Rashab.
Can I say something? Today's Hayom Yom talks about the second part of it. If anybody's looked at it today, that when we look at somebody deeply, it brings back the actual etzem and nefesh. It's an amazing thought. It's very similar to where the source of the Shemo is. I'm trying to relate it, and I can't exactly. Maybe Reb Simon could. I don't know.
I don't know. Tell me what it says there. I didn't look inside. What is today's Ayem Yem?
Interesting.
What is that Yem Yem?
Can you just say it?
He's talking about the Rebbe, thinking about the Chassidim.
It says,
And
it says,
vice
it
versa.
says, it says, bringing someone to mind has the effect of arousing that person's innermost powers. We see that when one looks deeply and intently at another, he will turn around and return the glance, because the penetrating gaze awakens the core of the soul. Thought has the same effect.
Etzem and nefesh.
Okay, fine. Anyway.
Koach hamshacha, hamachshava.
So I'm going to read 3 more lines and then I'll stop. Where he answers, he finally says like this, V'zehu. And now he's going to conclude the question, the answer to the question. V'zehu da hamshacha sha'idei mitzvos. And this is the meaning that the hamshacha, the transmission and the generated energy that comes through mitzvahs, hu dafka ha'idei hagdamas ha'aveda, the Neshomos b'bchinas ava rabba. It's explicitly through the priming and the preparation of Neshomos in a state of great and intense love. Mishum zeh, due to the fact, why do you need that? Sha'idei zeh dafka nimshich teisvus b'shem Havaya. Could his dafka through this Neshomos and ava rabba that reads the helam etzem helam asmi, that you draw down an abundance, an increased energy in Shemo Havaya the Mitzvos, in the name in Shemo, in the Shemo Havaya of Mitzvos, lias gile chodosh. So it's not just the energy in existence, and even in the root or the source of existence, but it's something from a completely different dimension. Lias gile chodosh ushia gile ad lamata. And that the gile should come all the way down to the lowest levels. That's what happens when you access the creator and not just the energy within the creation. Like I said, an example with a home. You're understanding the pnimius hakavana, so to speak, the inner, deepest, inmost intentions of the divine. So let's say a father builds a home for his child. So the home definitely is an expression of love. It's an expression of his connection. It's giving his child something really special. But ultimately, is the kavanah the home, or the kavanah is the connection he has with his child? So through the home, you come to discover the connection. So the dira b'tachtenim, the kavana isn't tachtenim. God wants a home in this world, but the kavana is not the world. The kavana is the home where he dwells side by side with his child, with his children, with his neshamas. So ultimately, that's the ultimate goal. It's not the product, but how the producer and the essence of what the producer wants is connected. And that is something that's beyond really words. So let's say after the home is built and you have the father and the child sitting at a table. So of course, they have all the benefits of the home, but there's some deep inner connection and joy they may not even feel that's experienced because they have built this home together and they are living in it and are connected on that level. So there are things that even though Giluyim experience it, but there are things that are not always expressible in that fundamental and atzmizdika connection. And that's what the Neshomos of Rabbi do. They draw down this energy into the mitzvahs. So it's new energy. And that it should come all the way down below, essentially transcending the structures of existence. Like we spoke before about simcha shal mitzvah, that simcha transcends the structure, but ultimately it's still not this highest level, I believe. Or maybe it is simcha shal mitzvah. I have to go back and see whether simcha shal mitzvah goes in the category of avarabba. Maybe it does. As a matter of fact, I do think it does. Okay.
He said very powerful things about simcha shal mitzvah.
Yeah, I think simcha shal mitzvah was also part of that. And not just the mitzvah, the simcha, but there he spoke simcha reveals it. But I think he also spoke about simcha transcending periods together, that transcends and pierces, breaks through structure. So I have to go back and see.
I think it was Pinim Sabbatic at that point we said that was.
Yeah.
So mitzvahs without this is missing a lot. I know we spoke already.
Hear the words. Read the words on top of the page. He says like this. He says these words explicitly. If you look, where do you say it? Read on page 1282, the line that begins b'makam acher. L'chein ayidei mitzvos bolvad, eina nimsha b'chinas ha'atzmus. Rak ha'er shal pi seder shtalshus. Lefi shezeh rak ma shekeli mamshech er.
He says it again on the top of 1286. Shal yidei mitzvos rak b'chinas chitzonios ha'or.
Okay, yeah. And then the parentheses, he qualifies it, but it's still not this level. Yeah, it's shmoy, not who. That's explicit here. Okay, I'll stop here before the parentheses. Ube'emes, it's really a middle of the idea. It's not finished by no means, but we'll stop here. I think it's a good place to stop.
Could you make some more clarity about it? Because today in Deir Shvi, the whole goal and the whole punchline is that Yidden should do mitzvahs. So, just clarity.
Where does it say opposite of that? This is the whole point here.
Because
you mean to say even if there's no avarabba, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, there's a few things you could say. First of all, we come after many generations, like the Rebbe said, that we've already come after generations that have had avarabba, emesidus nefesh, and all of that. So we stand on their shoulders. So we're talking here collectively. All the generations together have had all these levels. Mesidus nefesh, Jews have had mesidus nefesh more than we need. So I'm not concerned about the mesidus nefesh level. That's number one. Number two, being Tenekesh Shenishbu. The fact of the matter is, the very Mesidus Nefesh, Moshe Rabbeinu was an Anov Mikol Adam. He was humble for this generation because of our Mesidus Nefesh, that even though we have no revelations, we still hold on. So, don't dismiss that even the Krechts Even the sigh of a Jew is achuvi law, is a form of Mesiras Nefesh. And that's how I would see it. So he's talking here, the overall need for it, but there's also the collective connection that we all have. Now, obviously, each of us in our own way has to reach some level of b'chol moedecha, of avarabba. What does that mean for us? It can mean simply what he says in the Maimer Basaligani, to go with midas hanitzachon, where you're persistent and relentless in your commitment and devotion beyond the rational. Every person, commensurate to their level, goes beyond their regular structure. They're, in a sense, introducing a level of b'chol moedecha, of the Or Chodesh of who, and not just of Shemo, of mitzvahs that were being done mechanically or regularly on regular routine. That's what I would say. Okay.